we go. Alright, getting back into the DLC case for Spirit of Justice. And let's just get to it. So one thing we found out yesterday is that Soren was there at the crime scene. I only hope I can get some testimony from it that'll get to the heart of the matter. Mr. Wright, good morning all. Look, I'm afraid you might not like the result of today's trial. Nevertheless, don't tell me you're still thinking of going out that route. Soren is innocent and can't be found guilty. Take me instead. Ellen, please, try and get a hold of yourself. I believe in Soren with all my heart, so how dare you doubt him? Regardless of which one of them is found guilty today, it's going to be devastating for Ellen, isn't it? We'll just have to do everything we can. That's the best we can do, you know? The trial is about to begin, Mr. Wright. Alright, let's go, Maya. Yeah. Okay. Court is back in session for the trial of Ellen Wyatt. One moment. There we go. The defense is ready, Your Honor. Prosecution is ready, Your Honor. Let's see now, where were we? Yesterday's session, we found out about the Sprocket family's conspiracy to cover up the murder of Dumas Gloomsbury with a second reception. Taking advantage of our collective shock, the defense, as usual, made a nonsensical claim. Namely, that there was a third person present who struck the victim.
Objection!
Hey, don't try to make it sound like I made it up. The defendant herself made a statement about the existence of a third person, and further investigation has only proven her statement to be true. And I presume the defense intends to focus on proving the identity of this third person. Is that alright with you, Mr. Edgeworth? Indeed, Your Honor. In fact, I predict that the defense will, most likely, attempt to name Mr. Soren Sprocket as the true culprit. How did you... The driver during the accident that killed Mr. Sprocket's sister was the victim. Therefore, Mr. Sprocket had a motive to murder Mr. Gloomsbury. That's what you plan to assert, is it not, Mr. Wright? Why that transparent? Come now, Mr. Wright, did you really think the police wouldn't uncover this information? Congrats on getting it in one, Mr. Edgeworth. But... You're wrong. Soren didn't do it. He's innocent. Miss Wyatt, please. He's innocent, I tell you. What is this, Mr. Wright? I thought your claim about the existence of a third person came from the defendant. It did. This is just a minor hiccup. Did you not discuss your strategy for today with the defendant, Mr. Wright? Starting off on the wrong foot again is seriously cutting into my lifespan. It appears that the defense is in disarray. Therefore, the best way to clear things up is to ask Mr. Sprocket himself what happened. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Soren Sprocket to the stand. What? Very well. Bailiff, please bring Mr. Sprocket to the witness stand. I mean, to be fair, we probably wanted to ask him what's going on anyway. Witness, please state your name and occupation. So, I mean, honestly, the fact that Edgeworth is basically on the same page is not a bad idea. I mean, we'll both get to the bottom of this eventually. Something written on this paper airplane. Let's see. Soren Sprocket, Managing Director of Sprocket Aviation. Mr. Sprocket, please give your answers in words, not paper airplanes. Now then, Mr. Sprocket, please tell that doubting lawyer there what really happened at the time of the crime. Well, Mr. Sprocket? Mr. Sprocket. Alright. You want me to talk about what happened when the crime occurred? In other words, after the first wedding reception. When Ellen and I were in the reception hall, right? Not even the power of the court can stop him from marching to the beat of his own drum. I was stabbed by Dumas in the reception hall, and I collapsed to the floor. Next thing I saw was Ellen and Dumas in the Vista deck. I knew Ellen was in danger, so I headed for the Vista deck. When I got there, Dumas was already... I don't want to believe it, but it must have been Ellen. Nothing else makes sense. Wait just a minute here. You actually think Miss White killed the victim? That's right. Dumas was killed by Ellen. This is unbelievable. How can you suspect your bride, the woman you love?
Objection!
The truth can be cruel. Miss Wyatt, you must be very upset. Is there anything you wish to say? No, I can't believe this. Soren, I thought that at least you would believe in me. Best way now to show your love for your groom is to admit your guilt and try to atone. Soren.
Hold it!
Mr. Edgeworth, I haven't even cross-examined the witness yet. And quit picking on the clearly distraught. Yeah, that's so not cool, Mr. Edgeworth. The court is where we seek the truth, and the truth is unyielding even to the truly pitiful. Mr. Edgeworth, I find it distasteful to make a lady cry. It too, Your Honor. So what are you going to do, Nick? The third person Ellen saw on the Vista deck was Soren, and we have to prove Soren was there at the time of the murder. I don't see any obvious inconsistencies in his testimony, but we have to push forward.
Hold it!
Please tell me everything you can about when you got stabbed. After the reception, Ellen and I were enjoying a moment alone in the reception hall. Then Dumas appeared and stabbed me. He grabbed Ellen and the timekeeper and left the reception hall. Mr. Bloomsbury say anything at that time? I don't remember. After I was stabbed, I was immobilized by the pain. I see. The next thing I saw was Ellen and Dumas in the Vista. You know, hold on a second. Didn't we have another photo at one point? I guess we don't have it anymore. Oh well.
Hold it!
The Vista deck, huh? It was nighttime then. Could you really see them in the darkness? The moon was out, so I could see them clearly. From the looks of it, Dumas was trying to push Ellen and the timekeeper off the side. So you saw the defendant, about to be thrown off the airship, you say? That's right. In such a desperate situation, it would only be natural for her to fight for her life. The murder weapon was right there within her grasp. This isn't going well at all. I've got to do something fast. I knew Ellen was in danger, so I headed for the... So wait. He saw them fighting. So he ran towards them. I understand that your bride was in danger, but were you really able to move with a stab wound to the gut? I was desperately trying to push the pain out of my mind. I see. So adrenaline kicked in and gave you strength. Is that right? I don't see much of anything in this statement I can refute. That's right. I almost passed out several times as I made my way to the Vista deck. But when I got there, Dumas was already...
Hold it!
Are you absolutely sure, Mr. Sprocket, that by the time you got to the Vista deck, the murder had already been committed? Yes. But the Vista deck is just on the other side of the glass windows in the reception hall. Shouldn't you have been able to get there right away?
Objection!
Mr. Wright, have you investigated nothing? One way to the Vista deck is to go to the hold and take the lift. Really? There's no exit from the hall to the Vista deck? How much one hurries, it would take at least 10 minutes. Well, that's unhelpful. Soren had to have gotten there before the murder, or my claim won't stand. Do you have any ideas for me, Maya? It's definitely easier to prove that someone did go to the hold than not. I mean, you can't leave anything if you don't go someplace, right? Can't leave anything. Wait a minute. I think Maya's onto something here. Lack of a certain something actually proves that Soren didn't go to the hold. What's the matter? Are you stumped already? No, I'm far from stumped, Mr. Edgeworth. I know for a fact that Mr. Sprocket didn't go to the hold. You and your paper-thin bluffs. Mr. Sprocket's bloodstain on the lift proves he went through the hold. So what possible proof could you have that he did not, in fact, go through there? You want proof? You got it. You can do this, Phoenix. There's got to be proof that Soren didn't go through the hold. Well, Mr. Wright, proves that Mr. Sprocket didn't go through the hold. I presume it's going to be... this one.
Take that!
As anyone can see from the hold entry record, there's absolutely no mention of Soren Sprocket entering the hold. The defense asserts that Mr. Sprocket used a different route to get to the Vista deck. You can assert all you want, Mr. Wright, but can you actually prove another route exists? Can I prove the existence of another route to the Vista desk, you ask? What I want to know is, how did the other two get there? If he, I mean, okay. If Soren and Ellen were together, and Dumas grabbed her and ran off with her, they must have gone through the hold. So why is there a record? I mean, there is a record, but there are 3 entries. And also, why would there need to be 3? Why would all 3 of them need to... I don't know. Something's weird about that, even aside from this whole existence of another route. mean, unless it's this thing. I don't see any. Well, I didn't really think about it. I guess it's going to be hard to prove. If I can't back down now, the trial will be over if I do. There's only one thing I can do at a time like this. I can prove it. Okay. Even if it's just a bluff, I have to present something. Anything that can prove the existence of a faster route to the Vista deck. I mean, there is one thing. Yeah, I was actually gonna say, it's on this map right here. I don't know how, but...
Take that!
To save his bride from danger, Mr. Sprocket opened the escape hatch and made his way along the outside wall to the Vista deck. Isn't that right, Mr. Sprocket? That would certainly be a much faster route to the Vista deck.
Objection!
I'm disappointed, Mr. Wright. Is that really the best you could muster? That escape hatch is not meant to be used to get from the reception hall to the Vista deck. One slip, and that's all it would take for Mr. Sprocket to plunge to his death. I have to agree, the defense's claim is really stretching it.
Hold it!
I understand how it sounds, Your Honor. But at this point, it's too early to definitively say that he didn't go that way. So that's what you're going with then, I take it? Of course, Your Honor. This is real life, Mr. Wright, not some cinematic drivel or comic book. Or video game. Do you have some sort of logical explanation to share that would convince us of your claim? I do. Are you sure, Nick? Kind of. Actually, I have nothing. So I'll just have to wing it somehow. On what do you base your theory that Mr. Sprocket made his way along the outside? My theory that he was able to go along the outside wall despite the danger is based on... I go with the power of money. Sprocket used the cloud of currency to move along that wall. After all, you can make anything in this world move with money. I mean... I was going to say he used his vast resources to build like a complex parachute, or perhaps some kind of gliding system. But that's not how they interpreted it, so I don't think this is going to be correct. No, that's not what I... forget it. It's kind of a bogus thing to say, Nick. I sense you have something against the wealthy. Truly, a remark that reflects the meager state of your soul and your piggy bank. I don't think money could have helped Mr. Sprocket in this situation. What's more, I suggest you work on enriching your own spirit, Mr. I mean, I guess then there's... He was just that desperate. The groom risked his life and rushed to her side. Mr. Sprocket was able to make it to the Vista deck despite the danger. Because the power of love. That love is a source of strength that can help one overcome any obstacle. I think I can relate thanks to my own long, happy marriage. Wow, he actually seems to be buying it.
Objection!
The power of love, you say? Kind of a logical argument is hardly viable in a court of law. Would you agree, Your Honor? I'm afraid not, Mr. Edgeworth. You should never underestimate the power of love. You'll understand one day when you get married, which I won't. Exactly what is so wrong with wishing to remain unwed? Set him off, Your Honor. Never mind all this unscientific nonsense. You're aware, Mr. Wright, that at the time of the crime... There's a huge propeller turning at full speed between the hatch and the Vista deck. Even if a person were to go outside through the hatch, be blown away in an instant. Ah! Where does your power of love get you now, Mr. Wright? A huge spinning propeller, you say? In that case, I have to admit it does seem impossible. I should have known. Nick, you can't make that kind of face in front of your client. The worst of times are when lawyers have to force their biggest smiles, right? Right. I feel like I just saw Mia looking out at me through Maya's eyes. What's wrong, Nick? Why are you gaping at me like a giant sunfish? Thank you, Maya. You just helped me remember something really important. There it is. There's that fearless smile I was looking for. Now give us a mind-blowing theory, just like you always do. I have to turn my thinking around. Instead of wondering how Soren could have moved past that huge propeller, I have to think about what would have made it possible for him to do so. Your Honor, Mr. Wright only makes that ridiculous face when his back is pressed against the wall. Therefore, please do hurry and give your ruling before...
Hold it!
Too late. Mr. Edgeworth, it's still far too early to discount my theory. What are you talking about? The airship's large spinning propellers have already shredded it to pieces. But if we think a little more outside the box, I'm sure we can find a way he could have made it. Stop trying to stall, Mr. Wright. Show us how it could have been even remotely possible, if at all. I must agree with Mr. Edgeworth. Very well, Your Honor. Must have been a way. Some way that Soren could have moved along the wall in spite of the propeller. Now then, Mr. Wright, what specifically would have made it possible? This is how it would have been possible for Mr. Sprocket to get to the Vista deck. I'm gonna guess he got there some other way. Instead of going along the outside wall, he's got to the Vista deck some other way. That's why the propeller is irrelevant to this case. Really now, Mr. Wright, because as I recall, you were the one who was arguing that Mr. Sprocket made his way to the Vista deck by moving along the outside wall. Well, not if he used some kind of flying machine. Why then, are you now suggesting that he got to the Vista deck some other way? I agree, this new argument is complete about-face. Yes, well, what we want to know is, what would make it possible to move along the outside wall? So please refrain from changing horses midstream, defense. Alright, apparently it wasn't my pterodactyl machine idea. I mean, to be honest, I don't know that we've ever actually seen anything that definitively stated that the airship was flying. It allowed Mr. Sprocket to go along the outside wall in spite of the propellers. The location of the flying chapel at the time of the crime. The location of the flying chapel? Wasn't it flying high in the sky? No, Your Honor, I'm afraid it wasn't. What? Then where was it? At the time of the murder, the airship wasn't flying through the sky, moored to the ground. What? And if the airship wasn't flying, then that means the propellers weren't turning. In which case, Mr. Sprocket could have gotten to the Vista deck along the outside wall. Isn't that right, Mr. Sprocket? I don't remember. Did he just poke his thumb on the pencil lead by accident? No, he stabbed himself with his pencil. That's gonna leave a mark.
Objection!
If the propellers weren't turning, it would have been far too risky to go that way. Ah, but Mr. Edgeworth, you're forgetting about the power of love. Yes, the amazing power of love. Not this again. Very well, for the sake of argument, let's assume this so-called power of love made it possible for Mr. Sprocket to move along the outside wall of the airship. Can you prove that the airship was tied to the ground as you claim, Mr. Wright? Well, I found the evidence that proves where the airship was at the time. You can prove it, can't you? Why, can you think of anything you can use to prove it? Can't say I can. Oh wait, didn't somebody see something outside a window at the time of the... Here we go. I remember someone saying as much. A piece of evidence that shows what's outside the airship. Now what are you waiting for? A piece of evidence shows what was outside the airship at the time of the crime. Alright, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but sure. What kind of lousy drawing is that? It's a drawing made by Larry Butts. Huh, what can you prove with that poor attempt at artistry? I made this drawing before he switched the lanterns, so it must have been right around when the murder was being committed. Now, if I could direct the court's attention here... Is that a pterodactyl? Does that mean that the airship actually went back in time to the Cretaceous period?
Objection!
We've already proven that time travel is nothing more than a gimmick, did we not? We did, and I have no intention of bringing up that argument again. This drawing shows us an important piece of information. It shows us that the airship was actually moored on the ground. And what makes you so sure? That's easy. All you have to do is consider who made this drawing. Larry. That's right. It was Mr. Butts, and we both know what he's like. He must have seen something else and mistaken it for a pterodactyl. I can't argue with you there. Hey, wait just one doggone second here. What kind of moron do you guys take me for? I saw it with my own eyes. A pterodactyl flew right by the window, I tell you. I have the sharp eyes of an artist. Don't you believe me? No. Nick? Nope. Some friends you guys are. What about the judge? You believe me, right, Your Honor? I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you need to leave this courtroom. Bailiff, if you would. Come on, buddy, let's go. Why doesn't anybody believe me? Don't take it personally, Larry. I know you're just being, well, you. Ahem. Now then, so you're saying that what Mr. Butts really saw bears some relation to what was outside the airship at the time of the murder? Yes, Your Honor. At least, I think it does. What this pterodactyl really is will prove the airship was anchored at the mooring dock. It better, anyway. If it doesn't, my whole argument is a bust. If you're that confident about it, then please go ahead and tell us what it really was. Yes, Your Honor. Think, Phoenix, what could that pterodactyl have actually been? Oh. I mean... Huh. Interesting. Not what I expected, but I was wondering how this was going to come into play.
Take that!
Let's take a good look at this sign. The sign? Appears to have been broken and then repaired. What does the sign have to do with the pterodactyl? Let's focus on this part of the sign. The part that broke off and got reattached? What about it? What if we turn it like this? Oh, that shape. That's the pterodactyl in the drawing. Mr. Butts actually saw was this chunk as it was being blown through the air by wind. What? On the day of the murder, there were some heavy winds in the area of the mooring dock. But it's hard to imagine that this sign would make it up as high as an airship would fly. That means the flying chapel must have been anchored at the mooring dock that night. Isn't that right, Mr. Sprocket?
Objection!
That's more than enough of this power of love nonsense, you pop culture junkie. Present all the proof you want, but your argument is based far too much in conjecture. I'll return to reality now. What do you mean, too much conjecture? Even if the airship wasn't flying, that alone doesn't prove the witness went along the wall. True, even now it's no more than a possibility. But how do you propose Mr. Sprocket got to the Vista deck, Mr. Edgeworth? I noticed something as I went over the evidence. Just take a look at this hold entry record. What about it? I don't see Mr. Sprocket listed on here anywhere. Don't you remember? In yesterday's session, we had a very similar kind of argument. Did we? Honestly, Mr. Wright, are you going senile already? We talked about Larry Butts using the defendant's keycard to enter the hold. Oh, we did talk about that, didn't we? In other words, even if a person's name isn't on the entry record, it's still possible for that person to have entered by using someone else's card. Ah. Mr. Sprocket, you entered the hold with Mr. Nickety, didn't you? I did. What? Why didn't you tell us that in the first place? Pierce is indispensable. I didn't want to mention him unnecessarily and risk having him wrongly accused. I mean... if you passed out on the lift going up and don't remember it, then he is actually a pretty strong suspect now. I couldn't do without him. Mr. Sprocket, I ask that you testify in greater detail about your movements that night. The truth is, I went to the Vista deck with Pierce. That's why my name doesn't appear on the hold entry record. I was badly injured from being stabbed, but I was frantic. By the time we reached the scene, it was all over. Well, this doesn't help me one bit. Mr. Sprocket, you've concealed information from us time and time again. Who do you think you are, treating this court of law with such a reverence? That being said, I do appreciate the testimony you gave just now. Thanks to you, we now know why your name doesn't appear on the entry record. Now there are no more inconsistencies in the witness's testimony. It's Mr. Edgeworth for you. He never leaves a loose end dangling. You okay, Nick? I wouldn't exactly call this situation okay. Somehow I'll have to coax the information we need for an opening out of him. If I even can, that is. You didn't mention this because you didn't want Mr. Nickety to fall under suspicion? Is that because he has something to hide? I just didn't want the police to take up his time with all their questions, that's all. Neither the company nor the household would function smoothly without him. I see. Wow, sounds like Pierce is absolutely indispensable to the Sprockets. Anyway, getting back to your statement, when did you meet up with Mr. Nickety? We met up on my way to the Vista deck. I think Pierce and some of my relatives were on another floor, but Pierce heard the commotion and came running to my aid. Could hear the pandemonium all the way from another floor? Mr. Wright, would you like the current statement added to the witness's testimony? Yes, please, Your Honor.
Hold it!
I'm going to quote the others first, but I think that one's probably worth more. Name doesn't appear on the hold entry record because you entered with Mr. Nickety using his keycard. That's right. I guess the hold entry record doesn't matter as much as we thought. Now that someone's saying he was with Pierce and a few others, it's pretty tough to refute that statement. What's the matter, Mr. Wright? Cat got your tongue? Did you finally realize there's no point in continuing this trial any longer? Of course not. I'll wipe that smug look off your face. Mr. Sprocket, please continue with your testimony.
Hold it!
Speaking of your injury, how are you doing now? Knife wound is deep and continues to throb with pain. Fortunately, my internal organs were spared. One wrong move would have spelled the end for me there. And so, I've seen you up and about all over the place since the incident. I'm only following my doctor's orders to perform some daily light exercises. Mr. Wright, would you like Mr. Smockett's statement about his condition added to his testimony? Not that it appears especially relevant to me. Sure, why not? Let's have that one added too. I see. Very well.
Hold it!
So you still insist that you reached the Vista deck after the murder occurred? Is that correct? Yes, that's right. One must have killed him. There's no other explanation. I guess whether Pierce was with Soren or not doesn't change the outcome. I guess not. In fact, more witnesses actually makes it worse for us. So another cover-up, huh? Soren has too many secrets, but he's still hiding other things too. It's definitely a possibility, but in a situation like this, what we have to do is go back to the basics. We can go over the testimony and check for any lies or inconsistencies. You got it. Alright, Nick, let's go for it.
Hold it!
Your injury is really that deep. Luckily, it missed my internal organs, otherwise I wouldn't be alive right now. According to his doctor, his injury will take about 3 weeks to heal. There's no way someone with that kind of injury could have gone along the outside wall. You might have been able to with the burst of adrenaline brought on by the pain. Adrenaline. Is that your answer for everything? In a court of law, the only thing that matters is evidence, not rampant speculation. At least admit it's scientific rampant speculation. May I continue? Yes, of course. Alright.
Hold it!
Mr. Nickety come alone? I believe some of the subordinates were with him, but I don't remember exactly how many. They say there were others, but somehow they pulled that second reception off. I can't completely trust anything he has to say either. I see. So you, Mr. Nickety, and a few others headed to Vista deck, is that right? That's right. So if you stand with a candelabra, But then the blood was also found on the lift. What does that mean?
Objection!
Okay, that's not it. Let's start saying something anytime soon, Mr. Wright. No, it doesn't talk.
Hold it! Hold it!
I think that's the first reception, then that's not going to be it. There's no candelabra here, so I don't think this is it. Hold entry records all match up.
Objection!
It looks like there is, but there really isn't one, is there? It really seems like to me is you're asking for a penalty. Thanks for that definitive answer, Your Honor. Even I feel bad for the defendant. Well, you don't have to feel bad for her for long. Get it right next time. You'll see. This is awfully fishy to me. This think the same thing, so now it's just a matter of deciding which piece of evidence to present, right? And look at the evidence in the parent's statement. Huh, so it is this one. I mean, it's either got to be this, where, like, if his wound is so deep, how is he able to still do a second reception? Or perhaps... I don't see any blood stains here, so I think this would be it. But it could be this.
Objection!
Alright. What percent? Of course, 100, well, 90, wait, 80-ish. Would you accept 50%? Alright, alright. What do you say if you hit the button here? Press this witness some more. Okay, yeah.
Hold it! Objection!
It's either that or the candelabra itself, I guess.
Objection!
Is it this one? Injuries are knife wounded. Oh. Knife wound. I mean... Okay. I get that this is technically a contradiction. However, he may not have seen it that well. You were stabbed with his candelabra. In fact, I know you're quite aware of. In the reception hall when suddenly Gloomsbury appeared, attacked Miss Ellen and tried to take it away. Master Swarm knew to stop him and found himself in a struggle with Gloomsbury. That's when Mr. Sarin was stabbed with the candelabra, he said. Huh. Yeah, he specifically said that.
Objection!
Must have been a simple memory slip that made him misspeak. It happens to everyone. It's nothing to do with the case. Must be pretty desperate to point out something so minute. I have to agree, Mr. Wright. You hardly need to make such a big deal over such a small mistake. I contend that it's an important inconsistency. Besides, I couldn't find anything else. This is the only thing I have to go after. I say it's not important. Now let's not waste any more time on this matter. I agree. Everybody has a little memory lapse every now and then.
Hold it!
But, Your Honor, please let me explain. But can you? Can you really explain to this court what makes this slip so important? Yes, I can, Your Honor. After all, it was Soren himself who told Pierce that he'd been stabbed by a candelabra. This is more than a simple memory slip. There has to be some kind of reason for it. Well, Mr. Wright, please explain why the witness's slip of the tongue is so important. The point to focus on here is why the witness would mistake the weapon used to stab him. Think carefully, Phoenix. This could very well change the course of the trial. I see. So why did the witness make that mistake, Mr. Wright? Mr. Sprocket identified the wrong weapon used against him because... I think it might be that he has no memory of it. Because that one part, I noticed he was searching through his book after that. So I'm wondering if he's writing everything down because he has some kind of memory issues. He doesn't remember the incident, let alone the weapon used against him. Not only that, I believe Mr. Sprocket has some sort of memory disorder. Therefore, the defense contends that Mr. Sprocket's testimony thus far is invalid.
Objection!
Just because you can't find a flaw in his testimony, you want to throw it all out. Your baseless claims, nothing but pure slander of the witness's character. Mr. Edgeworth is correct, Mr. Wright. Can you explain your grounds for making this claim? Of course, Your Honor. What Soren has said, how he's behaved, and that's where I'll find a clue. Very well, let's hear your argument then. My grounds for claiming that Mr. Sprocket's memory disorder is his notebook. Notebook he always has with him. I saw daily events and information about the people around him recorded in it. Like a diary, perhaps. No, Your Honor. It's much too detailed to be an ordinary diary. It's more on the order of a database, actually. Database, you say? That's right. For some reason, Mr. Sprocket is apparently unable to retain memories. That's why he writes every little detail of his life down in his notebook.
Objection!
How could you possibly know that for sure? He might just be an extremely compulsive person. I thought so too, myself, at first. To be honest, we accidentally got a stain on that notebook yesterday. I mean, you got a stain on it. Hey, you're the one who tried to grab it out of my...
Objection!
Never mind whose fault it was, just get to the point already. Right, sorry. Mr. Sprocket. The page Miss Fay got a stain on yesterday. That's the page with the details of your stabbing on it, isn't it? No, I only write in this notebook because I'm very compulsive. I dropped the subject already. Sorry, but I'm not convinced. I noticed an odd fact about your notebook, Mr. Sprocket. In the earlier pages, you used it to write down invention ideas. But after a certain date, you started writing down a lot more and in much more detail. I believe your memory disorder stems from what happened on that date. Something so monumental it caused a memory disorder, Mr. Wright? You don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, but I do know what I'm talking about, and this is the proof. This is the thing that caused Mr. Sprocket's memory disorder.
Take that!
You were involved in this car accident too, weren't you, Mr. Sprocket? The shock of losing your beloved older sister is what caused you to develop your memory disorder. I mean, it could have also been an injury, considering he was injured in the crash, but sure, we can run with that. Well, is it? Mr. Sprocket. It's true. An accident did something to my mind. What? Ever since that day, every time I go to sleep, I lose my memories. When I wake up, the most recent thing I can remember is the day I lost my sister. It's as if I'm constantly going back in time. What? That's truly tragic. An inconsolable time traveler who goes back in time whenever he goes to sleep. Besides, time travelers do exist, you know, but you wouldn't understand. So that's what Soren meant. He was talking about himself. The actions of the people around me each time I awoke and made me aware of my... made me aware of my condition. That's why I decided to write everything down in my notebook, so I could move forward. The only memories you have since that day are the ones written in that notebook. That's right. Since the page about your stabbing got stained, you couldn't read from it, could you? Just one more thing I'd like you to clarify for me, Mr. Sprocket. Exactly what are your feelings toward the victim? Mr. Sprocket's feeling toward Dumas Gloomsbury? That's right, Your Honor. The witness said that every time he wakes up from sleep, his mind goes back to the day his sister died. Mr. Wright, you can't mean... Mr. Sprocket. Your pent-up feelings of anger and resentment toward Mr. Gloomsbury for the accident were renewed each and every time you woke, were they not? But you couldn't take it anymore, so you turned to murder, isn't that right? What? Mr. Wright, are you saying that the witness murdered Mr. Gloomsbury? For revenge? Well, Mr. Sprocket? Miss Wyatt. Your Honor, I did it. I killed Mr. Gloomsbury. No. What? Yeah, she's gonna try and take the fall for him. Miss Wyatt, what are you trying to do? Yeah. I guess she really meant it. My Soren didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who should be convicted. Are we to understand that you're confessing your guilt? No. Now wait just a minute here. Ellen, why would you cover for me? After I testified that I thought you must have killed him. I'll admit I couldn't believe my ears at first. But all I want is for you to be happy. Your happiness is my happiness, Soren. Without my notebook, I'd even forget those feelings of yours by tomorrow. Knowing that, do you still feel this way? You've loved me all this time, the same way you did before the accident. That's how I know that you're the same person I've always loved. No disorder can change that. Ellen. Your Honor, there are two things I'd like to correct. Two corrections. What are they? First of all, I want to withdraw one of my statements. Without memories to rely on, I took the police completely at their word. You can't be serious. So that means Soren never really doubted Ellen in the first place, did he, Nick? Ellen really does love Soren with all her heart. But in order to save her, I'll still have to go after Soren. I hope you can forgive me, Ellen. What is your other correction, Mr. Sprocket? The truth is, I never felt anger or resentment towards Dumas about my sister. What? Why not? That's because the one who caused the car accident was me. What? Please continue, Mr. Sprocket. I'm the one who killed my sister. To protect my career and my future, my father made Dumas take the blame, in exchange for money and the position of lead servant. But you see, Dumas must have held a grudge against me, not the other way around. And he must have attacked Ellen to get his revenge on me. Are you sure about all of this, Mr. Sprocket? Very sure. It's all been written down in detail in my notebook. That notebook is important evidence supplying background to this case. I must insist you submit it as evidence. The lawyer said I had turned to murder, but that's just not true. However, it is true that my older sister and Dumas are both dead because of me and my negligence. I just glanced through Mr. Sprocket's notebook. I wasn't able to read the part about when he was stabbed due to the bloodstain, but what's written here about his sister's car accident is exactly as he stated. Your Honor, as long as it matches what's written in that notebook, we still take the witness's testimony as valid in spite of his memory disorder. Yes, I believe we can. I understand now that the witness's memory is in disarray. But if what Mr. Sprocket himself wrote in his notebook is true, that means by the time Mr. Sprocket's party reached the scene, the victim had already been killed. That's right, I'm still in the same bind as before. But should I really simply accept the contents of the notebook as a substitute for Soren's memory? Well, Mr. Wright, what do you think? Will you accept Mr. Sprocket's notebook as an official representation of his memories? Wait a minute, Your Honor. The defense requests a chance to examine the notebook to see if it's trustworthy. Very well, but be quick about it. Thank you, Your Honor. So how should we examine it? Well, we should look at it from all different angles to see if there's anything suspicious. There's no point if I don't look at what's inside. I have to open it. With permission, Soren, here I go. Yikes. Well, it's just the page Maya got all stained. I guess it's not going to be very helpful at this moment. I'll keep going. The last page where there's writing. Something about this page doesn't sit right with me. I'm going to take a closer look. The page has been torn out. It looks like there was something written on it. Looks like a page has been torn out here. Mr. Sprocket, do you know what was written on it? Oh, that? I often tear out a page when I write somebody a note. Probably wrote something down for somebody, tore it out, and gave it to them. Oh yeah. That solves that then.
Objection!
Wait a minute. Can't ignore the possibility that something important was written on that page. Now that the page has been torn out, how can we determine what was written there? Well, let's see. To find out what was written in the notebook, we should... I know, we should hold the notebook up to the light. See a thing. What are you flinging about over there for? No, just a minute, Your Honor. I just need a little more time to... Mr. Wright, this court does not accept answers in the form of pantomime. Just misinterpreted my movements. Use fingerprint powder on the notebook. You might be able to see what was written. Fingerprint powder? How would that help us find out what's written there? Well, if the writing left indentations on the blank page behind it, fingerprint powder can make those small indentations visible to the naked eye. Oh, stop. Fingerprint powder would only sully the notebook further. Mr. Wright, if you use the powder and still don't find anything, then you must accept the notebook as a representation of the witness's memories. Right, Your Honor, I understand. If I don't find anything, it's all over anyway. Powder, don't fail me now. Let's see if we can find out what's written on the torn out page. First, I'll apply some fingerprint powder to these pages with A. Dusted enough powder, I'll use blow. Blow the excess powder away. If something should appear, I should switch to analyze mode, point to what came up, then confirm my choice. I mean, of course I gotta check this other side just to be sure. Not something weird written in the margins. Alright. Well, let's look at this one first. Wait, really? Let's try this one. I struck and killed Dumas. This is huge. I don't know why I couldn't see the other one. So it was written on the torn out page. Can't be. I don't believe it. There has to be some kind of mistake. Soren would never, could never. Miss Wyatt. Bailiff, please get the defendant to the infirmary at once. Apparently the defendant got too worked up. She's resting in the infirmary as we speak. Now then, please continue, Mr. Wright. Yes, Your Honor. This notebook is all Mr. Sprocket has to remember things by. This critical page torn out. Not even Mr. Sprocket himself knew the truth of what he'd done. I'm the one who killed Dumas? So it wasn't Ellen. Oh, thank goodness. Mr. Sprocket, does this mean you were at this crime scene during the murder after all? I guess I must have been. Mr. Sprocket, we really believe what's written in this notebook. Nobody touches this notebook but me. When I sleep, it's under lock and key. I don't remember writing that I killed Dumas, but I guess I must have. Well, now that we have a confession, I'm afraid I must surrender my verdict. Of all the... Yes, Your Honor, please give your ruling now, while Ellen is asleep. I want the woman I love to be set free as soon as possible. This one really does Ellen after all, doesn't he? Yeah. So this is how it ends, but is that how it really went down? Is there really no way for them both to be happy? I don't wish to consider anything written in the notebook to be the truth, but still. I myself wrote of the crime in my notebook. No further proof is necessary. Swan himself wrote it in his notebook. Wait a minute. Very well. I'll now give my verdict. It's about to be found not guilty, and Soren will be convicted for the crime instead. And yet, am I really ready for the judge to give his ruling? No, not when there's still one more avenue left to explore. Also, why did it not recognize the thing on the top half? Oh well. This court finds that...
Hold it!
Your Honor, there's still something that bothers me about that notebook. Oh, is there? What are you doing, Mr. Wright? All you have to do is keep quiet and your client's a free woman. I know, but I think there might be more to this case than meets the eye. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think there still might be a way for Ellen and Soren to be happy. What do you mean by more than meets the eye, Mr. Wright? I believe the question here, Your Honor, should be, why was the incriminating page torn out in the first place? Why, to destroy the evidence, I would imagine. But removing it from the notebook is the same as removing it from Mr. Sprocket's memory, which means he wouldn't have been able to trick the police if he came under suspicion. No, if he wanted to cover up his crime, he would have to remember that he had done it. So what are you getting at with this line of inquiry, Mr. Wright? Yes, please explain it so that we can all understand. Yes, Your Honor. The page was torn out of the notebook because... And that's the only way that this doesn't result in a bad ending, I think. Order. You claiming a third person interfered with the notebook? It's not all that surprising if you consider what's happened up until now. After both the car accident and the murder of Dumas Gloomsbury, there was always a cover-up not far behind. But I had my notebook with me at all times. Did you? Because I remember you were in a panic yesterday because you couldn't find it. That's true. So who orchestrated this particular cover-up, Mr. Wright? If we think back over the course of the trial, it's pretty easy to guess. We may have tried to tamper with Soren's memories is... I mean, he is the one that we handed it off to. So it could really only be this guy. Who tampered with the notebook in order to manipulate Mr. Sprocket's memory? It's Pierce Nickety. Pierce? Pierce tried to tamper with my memories? Pierce was manipulating me? Case in point, the two receptions that were held to cover up the murder. It's Mr. Nickety who directed the guests and orchestrated the entire scheme. No, it can't be. Which of my memories are mine and which have been rewritten? When did he start rewriting my memories? Who wrote this, and this, and this? And this, and this, and this, and this? So he can fly. I knew it. Look, Nick, he's coming back down. My memories, Ellen. Mr. Sprocket. Bailiff, please get Mr. Sprocket to the infirmary, on the double. Mr. Sprocket has been taken to the infirmary. We don't have to worry about him running away, so let us resume where we left off. Your Honor, the defense would like to call Pierce Nickety to the stand.
Objection!
You already know he carried out the cover-up to protect the company and Mr. Sprocket. What more do you want from him? This time it's different. The notebook, or rather, Mr. Sprocket's memories, have been tampered with. That means the only person who knows the whole truth is now Mr. Nickety. Don't tell me, are you actually trying to drum up a third suspect in order to exonerate the defendant and her groom? I'm not drumming up anything, nor do I have grounds to accuse him of anything, yet. All I know is that Mr. Nickety is the only one who knows the truth. And I think he's still hiding something we don't know about yet. No grounds yet, is it? Well, Mr. Edgeworth, can the prosecution consent to calling the witness to the stand? It does, Your Honor. However, I would like a little time to talk with the witness before we do. Very well. We will break for a 20-minute recess. Be a little short to stop now. I guess I'll keep going. Now I'll have to face Pierce on the stand. I'm not sure if I should be surprised or not. One thing's for sure, he won't be an easy adversary. So, do you think Pierce did it? It's too early to say anything at this point. I do think he's still hiding something. Nick, why did you pin everything on Soren Loser back there? It's like Larry still hasn't given up on Ellen. This Pierce guy's the real bad guy, and Soren and Ellie will live happily ever after together. Larry, that's not the kind of thing a decent human being says. Shame on you, Larry. Boo-hoo. You think I don't know? I know I have to give up on my Ellie. But Nick, promise me you'll make her happy? She deserves a happily ever after. I'm sure Soren will make her happy once all of this is said and done. The trial is about to resume, Mr. Wright. Alright, you ready, Maya? Yep, let's go. I'm rooting for you, Nick. This guy. This court is now back in session. Witness, please take the stand. Please state your name and occupation. My name is Pierce Nickety. I am the Sprocket family butler. Let's get straight to the point, Mr. Nickety. Someone tore out a page from Mr. Sprocket's notebook to manipulate his memories. And that person was you, wasn't it? That is correct. What about it? Well, that was easy. So why did you do it? Why did you tamper with Mr. Sprocket's notebook? Please allow me to explain. It pains me to do this, but I will tell you the truth. Pains you? That is correct. For my testimony will go against Master Soren's wishes. Soren's wishes? What is he talking about? He's gonna say he did it to, so that Soren wouldn't realize what he had done. Master this detect, the crime had already been committed. I saw Miss Ellen and Bloomsbury collapsed and Master Soren writing in his notebook. Master Soren said to me, I'll take the blame for the murder, so please take care of Ellen. But I went against his order. I tore the page out of his notebook and hid the body. Wait a second. Mr. Sprocket was writing in his notebook at the time. Could it be? It's meant to be a confession, an admission he killed Bloomsbury himself. He wrote that message to take the blame from Miss Wyatt. That is correct. Master Soren did hit Bloomsbury with the timekeeper to save Miss Ellen. Mr. Sprocket was the culprit after all. However, that blow did not kill Bloomsbury. It makes sense, Mr. Sprocket's injury wouldn't allow him to put much force into it. Enraged, Bloomsbury tried to attack Master Soren, who was already seriously wounded. But just in the nick of time, Miss Ellen hit Bloomsbury from behind and finished him off, it would seem. So the one who inflicted the fatal blow was the defendant. Yes, that is correct. And Master Soren tried to take all of the blame onto himself. No way. This is pretty bad, Nick. I mean, technically at this point you could still argue justifiable self-defense since she did it to keep Soren from dying, but I'm guessing that's not what they're going to go with. I'm kidding, pretty bad is an understatement. Well, well, Mr. Wright, it seems your decision to call for Mr. Nickety has backfired. The true culprit behind this case remains the defendant, Ellen Wyatt. Could this get any worse? But Pierce was involved in the cover-up plot. I bet he still has something to hide. Alright, let's see how the cross-examination goes.
Hold it!
Wait a minute. I thought you went to the Vista deck with Mr. Sprocket. Actually, that is not true. What? What do you mean? I found this out afterward, but Master Soren went to the Vista deck alone. He went out the escape hatch in the reception hall and went along the outside wall. Ha! You can't be serious. I mean, Mr. Wright's addle-pated guess was actually correct. What's with the addle-pated? I suppose truth really is stranger than fiction. To Mr. Nickety, when you got to the scene, you saw Mr. Gloomsbury, Miss Wyatt, and Mr. Sprocket. Is that right? That is exactly right.
Hold it!
So when you and your group arrived at the Vista deck, murder had already been committed. That is correct. Bloomsbury had already been struck. Miss Ellen had lost consciousness, probably from the shock of the incident. And how did Mr. Sprocket appear? He was bleeding from the stab wound he'd received from Bloomsbury. Barely conscious, he was writing something in his notebook. This third person on cell really was Soren then.
Hold it!
So Mr. Sprocket wrote a note of confession in order to take the blame from Miss Wyatt? Yes, that notebook is the only form of memory Master Soren has, so you understand what his action meant, I trust. What did it mean, Nick? To Soren, everything in that notebook is true, so Soren tried to take the blame by altering his own memory to make himself think he did it. No, Master Soren truly loves Miss Ellen. It must have been love that made him do that.
Hold it!
Mr. Nickety, could you please tell this court about that in more detail? That, you say? Which part do you mean, Mr. Wright? Could you be more specific? Oh, alright. Why did you go against Mr. Sprocket's order and tear out the page? That is a silly question. As I told you before, disposing of anything that may harm the Sprocket family's reputation is simply a part of my job. Alright, you did say that before, didn't you? I tore the page out of the notebook in order to protect Master Soren. Mr. Wright, would you like that statement added to the witness's testimony? Yes, please. Very well. Please add that statement to your testimony, Mr. Nickety.
Hold it!
So by tearing the page out of the notebook, you erased the memory of Mr. Sprocket, who was trying to take the fall from Miss Wyatt. I knew it went against his wishes, but I just could not let Master Soren bear the blame for something he did not do. As his butler, I believed that was the right decision for me to make. It's all for Soren's benefit, huh? That Pierce would do just about anything in the name of keeping Soren's image safe. So he's talking about the cover-up after the incident, huh? Right, that's information only somebody who was actually involved could know. So it might be a really important piece of testimony. I think so, too. I'll really have to tread carefully here. I mean, okay, so... There's also this, which we haven't used yet.
Objection!
I thought maybe, because if you look at the page, there were still a couple of letters that weren't torn out, so if he was really going to tear it out, why did he leave something that could potentially have led them to question it? But I guess that's not what they were going for. Alright, alright. else that contradicts that.
Hold it!
Let's try the other one. Please tell me more about the hiding of the body. Very well. After saying he would take the blame, Master Soren passed out. That's when I hid the body. Quickly took the lift down to the hold, where I hid Bloomsbury's still warm body in the spare peggable lantern. So it was you who hid the body, not the defendant. I think Mr. Butts would move the lantern containing the body to the reception hall. Well, I did not see that coming. I don't blame you. Not even Larry can predict what Larry will do next. Maybe I should take another look at the lantern and evidence. That's right. Would you like that statement added to the witness's testimony?
Hold it!
You hid the body in the lantern. As I told you yesterday, it was to make it as though the murder never happened. Thanks to Mr. Butts, things did not turn out as planned. So holding the second wedding reception wasn't Mr. Sprocket's idea, but yours, wasn't it? It's all for Master Soren's sake, and Sprocket Aviation. If I'm accused of a crime for trying to cover up the incident, I shall accept it willingly. He really doesn't seem to even care about himself. So he's talking about the cover-up after the incident, huh? Right, that's information only somebody who was actually involved could know.
Hold it!
I think it's either this or this, I think.
Objection!
Could it be? Is that what happened? If I'm thinking is true, then maybe I can prove neither Ellen nor Soren did the deed. Mr. Nickety, you said the body was still warm when you hid it, correct? So then what if Mr. Bloomsbury was still alive when you went to put his body inside the lantern? What? That's preposterous. Yeah, but actually this shows the victim might still have been alive while inside the lantern. I'm afraid you'll have to point out which part you're talking about, Mr. Wright. It's the bloody handprint on the wheel.
Take that!
As you can see, the back end of the lantern is a door. And blood here on the wheel. There's blood here on the wheel handle.
Objection!
bloodstain must have gotten there when the witness put the body inside the lantern. It in no way shows that the victim drew his last breath while he was within the lantern. I disagree, Mr. Edgeworth, for you see, in putting this lantern back together, the police inadvertently placed the inside handle on the outside and vice versa. In other words, the wheel handles got swapped. Why? So they got swapped? Yes, they got swapped. What? But that's ridiculous. Not at all. If you compare the other male tuggable lantern in the reception hall, you'll see that the non-painted one is on the inside. The detective in charge of the restoration will see me in my office later. Sorry, Emma, and good luck. In that case, what does the bloodstain on the wheel handle mean? The bloodstain didn't get there by chance. When the victim was put inside the lantern, he was only unconscious, not dead. When he regained consciousness, he probably tried to get out of the lantern. So he grasped the inner wheel handle, and that's when the blood got on it. This proves the victim was still alive when he was inside the lantern. At the time, I was completely convinced Bloomsbury was dead. Had I checked more carefully, he might have survived. Unfortunate to be sure, but not significant enough to change this trial's outcome. Again, I disagree, Mr. Edgeworth. It actually has a very significant impact on this case. The victim was struck by the defendant, then died from his injuries some time later. There's nothing more to it. Unless he was actually hit a second time later.
Objection!
And then it could have been anyone. That's where you're wrong. Let's take another look at Mr. Bloomsbury's autopsy report, shall we? Right, one contusion was found in the back of the head and one on the side. Description of his injuries. It says one contusion was found in the back of the head and one on the side. Yes, the one Mr. Sprocket gave him and the one Miss Wyatt delivered to finish him off. No, the defense would like to submit a different interpretation. Different interpretation? The victim was knocked unconscious by the first blow and was then put into the lantern. Then what about the lethal blow by the defendant the witness talked about? Yes, well, that didn't happen. After some time, the victim regained consciousness and tried to get out of the lantern. That's when he received the second blow that finished him off. Taking into account the fact that the victim was alive for a period after the first hit, and that he did receive a second blow to the head, it does seem entirely possible. Yes, as long as the first blow didn't kill the victim instantly, then there's a possibility that someone other than Mr. Sprocket or Miss Wyatt delivered the fatal blow.
Objection!
That's all you've got. Even if there was a time lag between the two blows, the prosecution's position doesn't change. What? What do you mean? It's elementary, Mr. Wright. After the reception, when the defendant was cleaning up the reception hall, the victim, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly came out of the lantern. The defendant grabbed the murder weapon, which was right there, and finished him off. That theory sounds awfully familiar. Of course it does, Your Honor, because it's exactly what I proposed at the very start. The second blow was inflicted by the defendant after all. I see. It seems a tangle of mysteries is unraveled into a single thread.
Objection!
But as long as there's a possibility that the fatal blow is delivered by a third person, then we must continue the deliberations. Give it up, Mr. Wright, unless you have something to prove the presence of your precious third person. Okay, Nick, just relax. You can do this. Come on now, take some deep breaths. Good idea. Deep breaths, deep breaths. There, don't you feel better already? That's right. I should calm down and get my focus back and go over everything again. And then, hopefully, I'll be able to find something to prove there was a third person. Let's see. First, why did Bloomsbury attack Ellen? Because he was tired of taking the blame for the accident? Something about that line of reasoning just doesn't feel quite right to me. No? How come? Well, it's just a personal vendetta. He had already stabbed Soren. So why then was he so determined to go after Ellen? That's a good point. We haven't really, touched on this very much. This whole thing feels too premeditated for a crime of passion. Bloomsbury didn't seem to have a personal grudge against Ellen. If Bloomsbury didn't have a personal reason to attack Ellen, then... You've taken long enough, Mr. Wright. Now it's time for some action. What proof do you have that a third person was involved? Alright, I'll show you. I'm not completely sure of what I'm doing yet, but it looks like I'm out of time. This piece of evidence proves the involvement of a third person. Yeah, I think it's gotta be that. I think we need to figure out, was this actually written by Bloomsbury?
Take that!
Get it now. I see why this note bothered me so much when I first saw it. It looks like a note outlining the murder plot. The note was apparently written by the victim. Why would he feel the need to write instructions to himself like this? Your Honor, please take a look at this note. This is the victim's murder plan, right? It's definitely a murder plan, but what if Mr. Bloomsbury didn't write this note himself? What? This is how you intend to conjure up your mysterious third party, Mr. Wright? Can you even prove that note wasn't written by the victim? Yes. Yes, I can. Very well then. Please present your evidence, Mr. Wright. This evidence proves the victim didn't write the note. This right-handed person. Is there something we have that shows that he's not right-handed? Oh, right. His dominant left hand.
Take that!
The weapon Mr. Bloomsbury used to stab Mr. Sprocket. I was wondering what you'd pull out this time. Dare I ask what that could possibly have to do with the note? Mr. Bloomsbury's prints were found on this candelabra, and the prints were from his left hand. So, that makes the victim left-handed, correct? Exactly, Your Honor. The police looked into it, too, and confirmed as much. Now, take a look at the smudged writing in this note. Notice how the smudging only starts from the middle of each preceding line. Had this been written by a lefty, the writing would be smudged from the far left end. Yeah, that's true. That is something I noted when I was... because that's how the smudges happen when I try to write something. This means that whoever wrote this note was definitely right-handed. In other words, somebody other than the victim wrote this note. How did I miss that? I guess it was far enough between introducing those two pieces of evidence that didn't connect them. Someone other than Mr. Bloomsbury wrote it, then what does this note mean? Mr. Bloomsbury followed this note to the letter when he attacked Miss Wyatt. So clearly this note isn't a murder plan written by Mr. Bloomsbury, but rather, these are instructions to kill Miss Wyatt issued by somebody else.
Objection!
If it wasn't the victim who wrote these so-called instructions, who wrote it? Most of the people involved are right-handed, you know. It is correct. The majority of the family and their employees who were on the airship are indeed right-handed. I must say, that is a very rough and slipshod conjecture you've proposed. But I haven't figured out who wrote it just yet. Leave it to Mr. Edgeworth to go for the jugular. This culprit who ordered Bloomsbury to attack Ellen. What could their motive have been? It doesn't seem very likely Ellen did anything to incur anybody's wrath, right? Right, not too likely anyway. In that case, it has to be about Soren. If somebody were to hold a grudge against Soren, what would it be about? That accident, I'd guess. I can understand if Bloomsbury felt resentful about having to take the... Did he used to be a surgeon? Lost the most of that accident with Soren's sister. She lost her life after all. But what about Soren's sister's fiancé? He's was crushed by losing somebody so precious to him. Somebody precious, huh? Soren's sister. Wait, this one person? Someone else who must hold a grudge against Soren. I think so. I think this somebody else used Bloomsbury to try and get revenge against Soren. You say somebody tried to get revenge against Mr. Sprocket, Mr. Wright? The person who manipulated and used Mr. Bloomsbury was... The person who used Mr. Bloomsbury to try and get revenge on Mr. Sprocket, and then finished Mr. Bloomsbury off to silence him, was a man dear to Mr. Sprocket's older sister, Selina Sprocket's fiancée. Not that I'm not positive, but it's certainly possible. His fiancée could have made Bloomsbury attack Ellen to get his revenge on Soren. What? Her fiancée? Order in the court. Order, I say. Yes, it does seem quite believable that Miss Selina Sprocket's fiancé would bear a grudge against Mr. Sprocket for his role in the accident. Exactly, Your Honor. Maybe your fiancé was trying to murder Miss Wyatt in order to make Mr. Sprocket experience the same pain he'd felt.
Objection!
Miss Sprocket's fiancé was a surgeon, if memory serves. The only people who attended the reception were family and staff members. That may be, but then that just means that Miss Sprocket's fiancé must have been among those who attended. What? Really? Of course. Otherwise, how could he have killed Bloomsbury? Oh, I see what you're doing. This is just another giant bluff, isn't it? Alright, I'll bite. Who exactly do you claim this fiancé to be? Yes, I would like to know as well. Are you sure you're going to be okay, Nick? Maybe? When it comes to suspicious people, there's only one person on my list. I need to find something that connects him to Selina. This will help us identify Miss Sprocket's fiancé. I've really got to start looking at these pictures more closely, you know? Oh, man.
Take that!
That photo. Yeah, buddy. That was Miss Sprocket's pocket watch. Haven't we seen it somewhere before? Yes, now that you mention it, I do feel as if I've seen it somewhere before. I believe we've all seen it, right here in this very courtroom. Impossible. That's right, the pocket watch in this photo. It's the same pocket watch Mr. Nickety has on him right now. Yeah. This is clear proof of a strong connection between Pierce Nickety and Selina Sprocket. No. Well, Mr. Nickety, is this true? Mr. Nickety, you were once engaged to Selina Sprocket. That pocket watch, you keep it as a memento of her, don't you? Mr. Nickety, you plan to rob Mr. Sprocket of his loved one, to make him feel the same pain as you, isn't that right? Mr. Sprocket managed to fight back and knocked Mr. Bloomsbury unconscious. You thought Mr. Bloomsbury was dead and hid his body in the lantern. But then you noticed Mr. Bloomsbury regained consciousness, and so you finished him off to prevent your plan from being exposed. This is the defense's take on what really happened in this murder case. Mr. Wright, does this mean you wish to officially accuse this witness of the murder of Dumas Bloomsbury? The defense accused Mr. Nickety of the murder. I mean, I don't really see any other way around it. The defense indicts Pierce Nickety on the charge of murdering Duas Bloomsbury. Why, Mr. Nickety, would you care to respond? Man, this lawyer just yaps on and on and on. As you guessed, this watch is a memento of Selena. Stopped working at the time of the accident, though. Then you really are. Yes, I was Selena's fiancé, and not just her fiancé, but the surgeon beside her deathbed.
Objection!
Mr. Nickety, why didn't you tell me any of this before? Shut it, you useless prosecutor. Thought you could be of use, but apparently this case was too much for you. What did you say? If your office hadn't stuck its nose all up in this, I could have swept it under the rug. Not only did you interfere with the case, but you even let me fall under suspicion. That's because you kept trying to cover things up on the sly. Covering things up wasn't your only involvement. The only person who had a motive to use the victim to try and kill Mrs. Wyatt was you. Malignant tumors. There are malignant tumors in this courtroom, lesions oozing with false charges. The tumors are one idiotic lawyer and one useless prosecutor. After the truth is revealed, I'll have the both of you incised from the legal world. I'd like to see you try. Power of the Sprocket family would be a cinch. I will now begin the operation. What happened to Mr. Nickety? He went into his second phase, which is usually the indication that they're the actual culprit and that we're on the right track. He's finally showing his true colors. What he did to that shoulder neck. Quit your yapping before I suture your chatty lips shut. It'd be funny if you had like a 9-foot-long surgical... not surgical knife, it's the scalpel. It's like he's a completely different person. Sure looks like it, huh? Can't let our guards down now. Mr. Nickety, it's finally time for you to testify to the truth. It seems we're entering the final act at last. Witness, your testimony, please. Mr. Nickety, why didn't you say anything? You just took a picture of me, or something. You want me to voluntarily testify, hoping I will make a slip of the tongue. What a very impressive plan, or brain, I might add. His spikes actually show up on the x-ray. That's kind of funny. No, that was uncalled for. You want to know something, you ask the question. I'll answer, but I have no intention of making any voluntary statements of my own. What's he trying to do, Nick? He's using the silent treatment as a strategy to avoid getting tripped up. Clever guy. No more lies, Mr. Nickety. You will tell us nothing but the truth from now on. Ah. What do you think you're doing? No one asked you to speak. Just keep quiet over there and play with your frittles. How dare you? Well, this is a rather unconventional situation, but please proceed, Mr. Wright. Yes, Your Honor. This isn't going to be easy, is it? Say that again. All I can do is just try to draw as much information as I can out of them and look for any inconsistencies. The moment of truth, huh, Nick? Good luck.
Hold it!
If he won't speak voluntarily, then I guess I'll have to ask him something. What question should I ask? On the day of the incident, you were constantly surrounded by your subordinates. Is that right? Absolutely. I was in someone's line of sight at all times. The fellow is busy taking care of every detail of the event. Mr. Edgeworth, I believe your investigation backs up my claim. He had statements that said groups of his subordinates work with him in rotation, so he was always with someone. As the prosecutor just said, I couldn't even get close to the lantern containing Bloomsbury by myself, let alone kill him. Pierce didn't have a chance to get close to the victim alone, huh? Mr. Wright, would you like that statement added to the witness's testimony? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like it to have that statement added to his testimony. Very well.
Hold it!
I mean, isn't it true that when Mr. Bloomsbury regained consciousness inside the lantern, you murdered him in order to silence him? He was an excellent employee and very loyal to me. Bloomsbury was my right-hand man. I'd suffer the most from losing him. You really think I'd kill a guy like that? That would make sense only if you were innocent. But since your goal is revenge, you don't really have to care about something like that. But I am innocent, I tell you. Don't try to force your conjectures onto me. Without decisive evidence, I can't pursue this line of questioning any further. A little bit I can drag out of him helps, right?
Hold it!
I mean, we might as well get all of these. You've been nursing a grudge against Mr. Sprocket over the loss of your fiancée. Isn't that right? I'd be lying if I said I felt no resentment whatsoever. But Master Soren didn't cause that accident on purpose. Master Soren himself has suffered greatly. But you quit being a surgeon and found a way to get even closer to Mr. Sprocket. Wasn't that so you could carry out your revenge on him? Don't insult me. Supporting Master Soren and Sprocket Aviation with my life's work is my penance for not being able to save Selena. This is how I honor her. I feel your devotion as both a fiancé and a surgeon. Your statement breaks my heart. Never thought of exacting revenge on Master Soren. Never thought of it, huh? I guess I should probably take that with a pound of salt. Mr. Wright, would you like that statement added to the witness's testimony? Okay, so one of these 3 points, huh? You're getting rid of Bloomsbury, exacting revenge on Soren, or having the opportunity. Which one of these? Mr. Bloomsbury think of Mr. Sprocket? After all, he was forced to take the blame for the accident. He must have been resentful. He got his position as the lead servant in exchange for taking the blame. It wasn't exactly a bad deal for him. He must have felt some sort of indignation. Who knows? Now that he's dead, we'll never know for sure. It's pointless to talk about it any further. Alright, dead men tell no tales after all.
Hold it!
So you've had no thoughts of vengeance toward Mr. Sprocket whatsoever? Of course not. Selina wouldn't have wanted that. Thrown my own life away and lived solely for the sake of the Sprocket family. So I showed my love for it. Alrighty then. Well, one thing's for sure. Pierce gets really emotional when it comes to Selina. No kidding. I'm not sure how he feels about Soren, but his love for Selina is pretty obvious.
Hold it!
So you were always in someone's line of sight. I was surrounded by family members and staff as we prepared for the reception. During the reception, I was stationed behind the sweetheart table to attend to the couple. When could I have possibly committed murder? I'm not buying it. If Pierce is the true killer, then there must have been some time when he was out of everyone's sight. What do you think, Nick? Is there a chance for us here? Well, as long as we have some kind of testimony from him, there has to be. Just have to compare his testimony against the evidence and find an inconsistency, yeah. There was a time that he was on his own and would have had an opportunity. Would have been here.
Objection!
But that's not it. So if he did use it then presumably somebody else is with him. An opportunity. He was the one who attacked her from behind. Maybe the fog provided cover?
Objection!
Nickety testifies that he was always with someone at the time of the incident, but never had a moment alone to commit the crime. Yes, and the police investigation backs that statement up, doesn't it? But there was an opportunity, in fact, one and only one. A moment when Mr. Nickety could have killed Mr. Bloomsbury without anyone noticing. What? And the one thing that made that moment possible, shown here in this photograph. All those people watching, I couldn't have possibly committed murder. Not believing your honor, this lawyer's a malignant tumor. He wants to infect this judicial body with violent accusations. Mr. Nickety, I would ask that you keep quiet this time. You need to evaluate the defense's claim, and your yammering only serves to throw further suspicion your way. Alright. Mr. Wright, let's see this one thing you mentioned, but be warned, this had better not be one of your offhanded claims. Who do you think you're talking to, Mr. Edgeworth? Very well, Mr. Wright. Please point out for us the one thing that made the moment of the murder possible. moment when it's possible for Mr. Nickety to kill Mr. Gloomsbury.
Take that!
The moment of the murder possible is this thick mood fog that engulfed the entire reception hall. Which is under the cover of this fog. Mr. Nickety murdered the victim. Yeah, that would have been the right point for it. What? Mr. Nickety was standing right next to the lantern that Mr. Gloomsbury was in. It's the only moment the murder could have been committed without being seen.
Objection!
I can accept that there was a moment when the witness was obscured from others by fog. But that doesn't prove Mr. Nickety killed the victim at that very moment. If you can't prove the crime was committed during the reception, the trial ends here. So caught up in finding a foothold that I forgot to think that far ahead. Well done, Mr. Edgeworth. It's time to call this trial's time of death. Well, Mr. Wright, can you prove the murder happened during the reception? Don't even bother. His claim is dead on arrival. Victory was within your grasp, prosecutor. Quiet, witness. I have no interest in victory. All I care about is the truth. One that we can only arrive at through further deliberation. Edgeworth. Enough of this, Your Honor. This trial is over. No, Mr. Nickety, that is for me to decide. Mr. Wright, can you prove it? Can you prove that the murder was committed during the wedding reception?
Is there no verdict yet? The lawyer's obviously out of answers.
Prosecutor, the judge, they're all infected. And malignant stupidity is so advanced not even the best surgeons can save them. In fact, not even a brain transplant can cure them. This court is infected with idiocy. It's a pandemic.
Objection!
Mr. Nickety, that's enough already. Finally ready to give up, are you? No, just the opposite, actually. I'll prove the murder was committed during the reception. By you. You'll prove it? Can you really, Mr. Wright? Yes, I can, Your Honor.
To be honest, I don't know exactly how I'll do it just yet. But if I want to get to the truth Edgeworth was talking about, I'll just have to find that way.
Very well, Mr. Wright. Let's have your proof. Enough of this foolishness. He's just bluffing. Stop it, Mr. Your Honor. We'll do nothing of the sort. You're just a district court judge. With the power of the Sprocket family, I'll... Enough of your foolishness, Mr. Nickety. This judicial body will not succumb to the influence of money or power. Now then, let's hear it, Mr. Wright. Let's hear your truth. Think, Phoenix. Remember everything you've learned so far. You can do this. You can find the definitive evidence that will lead us to the truth. Yep. Alright. Can you prove the murder took place during the wedding reception? Just used the murder during the reception he had to have used. The murder weapon? Yes. The weapon that was used to strike the victim twice. According to the autopsy report, the victim was hit by the same object both times, so without a doubt Pierce used it to commit the murder. The weapon used to kill Bloomsbury was... I mean, this is stuff we already know. Pierce struck the victim during that one simple moment. He must have used the timekeeper. When you think of it, wasn't it also used for something else during the reception? During the reception, the timekeeper was also used for... Right, the first startup of love. The timekeeper had been activated during the reception. What does that mean? I mean, that's... Yes, that's true, because we found the key there. What does that mean? Activate the timekeeper again now and find any trace of evidence of the murder. Be conclusive proof that Gloomsbury was killed during the reception. Special ceremony took place during the reception in question, kind of special ceremony. It was called the first startup of love. Hey, you know, we never really discussed this all that much. Apparently the couple activated the timekeeper for the first time during it. You know, that's a good point. We don't actually know what this thing does when it starts up. Does that mean the timekeeper here in evidence isn't activated at the moment? And what would happen if we were to activate it? Why don't we see for ourselves? It would give us a chance to examine it. And while we're at it, we just might find some conclusive evidence. No, you can't activate it. Mr. Nickety, keep quiet or I'll have you thrown out of court. By the way, Mr. Wright, this is supposed to be a time machine, right? We're not going to travel back in time to the Stone Age or anything, are we? I don't think we have to worry too much about that, Your Honor. I'm still a little nervous, nonetheless, but the truth must be known. Very well, go ahead and start up the timekeeper. Do you know how, Nick? I think so, maybe. The bride and groom each had a symbol of their love, and when they put them together... Oh, how romantic it was. Right, the key and the gear. Or something like that. That's right. Are you ready to activate the time machine now? Yes, Your Honor. Some of the bride's love that's necessary for activating the timekeeper is... I mean, isn't it this part here? Because this was not on her possession.
Take that!
That's why it's pendant. It's a symbol of the bride's love that's necessary for activating the timekeeper. What? Then does that mean you can start it up with Miss Wyatt's pendant? I believe so, Your Honor. Very well. Please try it now, Mr. Wright. Okay, here I go. First, I have to figure out where the pendant goes. Maybe on this side. Outer casing is made of metal. Sure wouldn't want to get hit with something like this. This hole looks like a good spot. Try setting the pendant in here. It fits. This must be the right spot. Now I have to find a place to insert the key. Hole in the middle of the pendant. Could this be it? See, I was wondering about that. Yeah. Oh, I see. You can wind it up. Ooh. It worked. The timekeeper's been activated. All I have to do is find proof that the crime was committed during the reception. I mean, definitely a big problem right here. I think I found it. Conclusive evidence that the murder was committed during the wedding reception. It's real obvious. As I suspected, there's evidence of the murder inside the timekeeper, Mr. Nickety. The timekeeper was only activated and opened during the wedding reception, right? So that means this is conclusive proof the crime was committed during the reception. After you killed the victim under the cover of fog, you closed the timekeeper to hide the bloodstain, didn't you? What were you calling? Oh, incorrect. Look at me, I tell you.
Objection!
Give it up, Mr. Nickety. How could the defendant, who was in the middle of pledging her love, have possibly committed the murder with everyone watching her? It was the family. Yes, all the family members conspired together to kill her.
Objection!
There's no way you can talk your way out of this, Mr. Nickety. During the reception, during that one dreamlike moment, only one person could have used the timekeeper to beat the victim to death. And that one person was you, Pierce Nickety. No, this isn't over yet. I won't give up. Oh no, I cut the artery. This stupid thing. Stop the bleeding now. Give me forceps. Forceps, I said. Hey, where's everyone? Fine, I'll manage this alone. Do it all by myself. Can fix anything, repair anything. You have to get better. You have to live. You must... I would have been able to save her. If only I hadn't listened to her. If only I had treated her first. If only that sword hadn't been there. Witness, are you finally ready to tell us the truth? It's just as the lawyer deduced. So was all our revenge scheme against Soren Sprocket. Do you have any idea how hard it is to lose someone you love right in front of you? Selena's condition was clearly more critical than Soren's, but in spite of that, she said, "Please help Soren." Sprocket's last words, so that's what she really meant by those words. I was able to grant her wish with the price of her life. So you got a job with Sprocket Aviation, waited for your chance to get revenge. You got close to Mr. Gloomsbury and hatched this plot, is that right? Gloomsbury already bore a grudge against Soren, so when I tempted him with an even better position, he immediately took the bait. He was your accomplice, someone who shared the same goal as you. Why is it necessary for you to kill him? I didn't expect Soren to strike Bloomsbury out on the Vista deck. I certainly never imagined he'd make his way there along the outside wall. Soren's love is the real deal after all. My plan had been compromised, so for the time being I hid his body in the lantern and tried to think of my next move. And then Mr. Gloomsbury came to during the second wedding reception. As soon as I saw Gloomsbury, I instantly hit upon an idea to pin the blame of Gloomsbury's murder on Ellen. I tried to break up the couple by making the bride out to be a murderer. How despicable. Soren was getting the company in a wedding, both things that were supposed to be Selena's. He took every happiness from her. Who's the despicable one here? Do you think what you did would make her happy? I know it wouldn't. But I couldn't just stand by, watching Soren enjoy his happiness. I was going to have Soren taste the same pain I had, and then take over Sprocket Aviation. I would take back from him all of the happiness that was rightfully Selena's. Time stopped for me the day I lost her, just like this pocket watch of hers. Pierce. Miss Wyatt? I believe Selena would have said, "Leave this ill will behind. Your time is yours to live." It's too late for me. Time will never advance for me ever again. What? It can't be. I see now, Selena. What I did was wrong. I see no further need to continue this trial. Bailiff, please take Mr. Nickety away. Pierce, another inconsolable time traveler, who lived in time that stood still. Well, now then, I must render my verdict regarding the... Your Honor, before you give your ruling, would you please allow me a moment? Very well. Now then, there's something I need to say to you. Yes, Soren? put you through something truly horrible. This whole thing happened, all because of me. I would understand if you wanted to call off our marriage. What? Of course not. I never once thought that. If you stay with me, you'll only face even more trying times in the future. What do you mean? The truth of this incident and the car accident before it. I'm going to tell the public everything. I expect the company's reputation will suffer, and I'll take a lot of criticism. But I feel I can only really start over once I get everything out in the open. Soren, after all that's happened, I might not have the right to ask you this, but, well, how should I say this? Maybe I'll just... Life with me probably won't be very easy, but... Will you marry me? Yes, of course. Your Honor, thank you for this time. Please continue with your ruling. Very well, but first, I have one question. The two of you pledge your eternal love for each other. The gods of justice, Themis. Huh. I didn't know they had, I know Themis was a thing in this world. Huh. I do, Your Honor. I do. Does the prosecution or the defense have any objections? Well done, Your Honor. No objections here. The defense has no objections either, Your Honor. This court finds the defendant, Ellen Wyatt. That's not right. This court finds the defendant, Ellen Sprocket, not guilty. Court is adjourned. Ellen, Soren, congratulations. Mr. Wright, I can't thank you enough. If you hadn't exposed the truth, Soren and I wouldn't. But now you can finally start your new life together, right? Thank you. Mr. Wright, we'll be holding our real wedding ceremony in the near future. Would you do us the honor of coming to it? I want you to witness our fresh start. Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world. And Ellen, this time, it'll finally be happily ever after, right? Oh yes. Two of you have persevered and overcome this trial together. Now, no matter what obstacles come your way, I'm sure you'll be able to handle them. And there's another thing I'm sure of, too. This person will always be watching over the two of you.
Take that!
Selena, yes, I think you're right. We promise to live life to the fullest, for Selena's sake, too. Right, Soren? That's right. Well, we'd better be on our way. Yes, my love. Wow, the old threshold carry, huh? Way to show off. We'll be seeing you. Goodbye for now. Be looking forward to that wedding. Hold on tight, Ellen. Better believe I will. Never letting you go. There they go. Not think you're going to that wedding by yourself, are you, boss? Taking us too, right? Boy, I bet there's gonna be all kinds of fancy food there. Nina, when did you get here? Just now. Would have been here to cheer you guys on earlier, but Trucy never gave me a chance to slip away. Going to be in even bigger trouble with her later. Speaking of the wedding, maybe I should ask them to invite Edgeworth. Mr. Edgeworth, really? He thought Ellen was guilty all the way to the end. That may be true, but Mm-hmm. If he hadn't stood up for us when he did, the trial probably would have ended there. You mean Mr. Edgeworth gave us that chance? Maybe. Though, knowing him, I doubt he'd ever tell, even if I asked. Well, that's how you feel about it, Nick. And why not try to get him invited? Hey, Maya, have you ever tried to catch the bouquet? What? No. Never have either. Fighting over a bouquet that's been tossed by the bride. Talk about a fierce competition. Totally stoked. I'm not sure it's really supposed to be all that competitive. Yeah, but I think I would go for the chance to be competitive at just about anything. Pretty good jumper, so I think I've got a chance. She's definitely missing the point of the whole thing. Larry, how did you manage to stay so quiet for so long? Shut up. Wishing the lady you fell in love with every happiness is what a real man does. Be sure that relationship was over before it even began, Larry. Darn it all. Only I was 10 years younger, things would have gone differently. Hands of time, why won't you turn back? Yeah, they only go one way. Today's Ellen and Soren's third wedding ceremony and reception. I heard the bride and groom insisted it be on the Flying Chapel again. In the end, they were nice enough to invite me and Maya, and Athena kind of invited herself. Also invited Edgeworth, Emma, and even Larry. I'd say third time's the charm, right? I really do hope it's happily ever after for them this time around. Still, I get the feeling it's going to be one rowdy party.
Ready when you are. Okay, here we go! Huh? Oh.
Oh, hey! Look who's next!
Huh?
No.
Get back! Haven't you ever heard of Lady Ruth?
I'm truly blessed to have you.
And that's a wrap. It was a pretty good case. I think once we figured out who it was, it kind of, oh, that's neat. Locked a special bonus the music background setting singers, commemorative. Huh, neat. Yeah, once they reveal their true colors, it's and you know you pretty much know where it's headed. It was still fun to have all the gang back together one more time. So, oh wow, there's a bunch of new stuff. Or maybe just those two things. Anyways. So I guess that's gonna do it. Overall, yeah, I mean, still, you know, solid game, solid way to end the trilogy. Yeah. I don't know, there isn't really much more to say. Had a great time going through the games. Yeah. Wasn't really expecting to finish today, but thought there might be like a third day to that one or something. But yeah, overall, I've had fun with this. It's good going back to the fourth game again and getting to play Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice for the first time. As far as what's next, well, we still got the Great Ace Attorney games to go through, and I think I played the Miles Edgeworth spin-off game, the first one, at some point. I don't remember it too well. I don't know if I'll try and like set that one up. I think it's probably the Great Ace Attorney is much more likely. But I may not do that one yet because I know in a little under a month the Elden Ring DLC is going to come out. And I'm probably going to be doing that. I doubt I would be able to finish both of those games in a month. So I don't know. If I think of something quick, maybe I can knock out in the next few weeks. I might do that. But otherwise, we'll see what happens. It is getting pretty late though, so I'm going to have to wrap up for the night. So I hope y'all have enjoyed this. I've had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, I guess once I figure out what's going to happen next, I'll let you know. But until then, have a good evening, and I'll see you next time.